Hello everyone, I am Dr. Hafsa P Ahamed, Assistant Professor from the Department of Prasuti Tantra&Streeroga from Yenepoya Ayurveda Medical College. Today I am here to present before you on the topic menstrual cycle and hormonal regulations. So these are our specific learning objectives: HPO axis, steroid synthesis, ovarian cycle, endocrinology of menstrual cycle and uterine cycle. So what is this menstrual cycle? So menstruation, it is very pretty fascinating that menstruation is a process which happens every month. That is, there is the shedding of the endometrial lining of the uterus every month, as well as there is proliferation and production of the endometrial lining again in that month. So all these are happening in anticipation of pregnancy. So we all know that there is a process called ovulation at the same time in the same month. So there is something which is operated in the ovary, which is called as ovarian cycle, and there is something which is operating in the uterus, which is called as uterine cycle. So what is menstruation? As I have said you, it is defined as the visible manifestation of cyclic physiological uterine bleeding due to shedding of endometrium following invisible interplay of hormones through HPO axis. So these are some of the facts which we already know, that is, the menstrual cycle is usually 28 days. First day of periods is taken as the day 1. Duration of bleeding is about 3 to 5 days. Estimated blood loss is between 35 and 80 ml. Regular cycle is 28 days. A deviation of 2 or 3 days is common. And the ovulation is also occurring at the 14th day. So the menstrual rhythm depends upon the HPO function. And what is this HPO? That is an axis. So H stands for hypothalamus, P stands for pituitary, and O stands for ovary. So this is the axis which controls our menstrual cycle. So it is starting with the hypothalamus. As I can see you, the hypothalamus, the menstrual cycle is all starting from the top, that is from the CNS, that is from the hypothalamus. So in hypothalamus, there is the nucleus called arcuate nucleus, which produces the gonadotropin releasing hormone from it. It traverses then into the pituitary gland, that is the anterior pituitary. The anterior pituitary consists of the gonadotrophs, which releases, so it stimulates the gonadotrophs. GnRH stimulates the gonadotrophs and it releases two hormones, that is FSH and LH. FSH stands for follicular stimulating hormone, LH stands for luteinizing hormone. So the follicular stimulating hormone and this LH again will act upon the ovary. There comes the ovarian part. So ovary in turn produces two steroidal hormones called as estrogen and progesterone. So this we can call it as HPO axis, and this is the fundamental structure of the HPO axis. And also this HPO axis should be unimpaired, that means it should be intact and it should be properly functioning for a good menstrual cycle to occur in the body. So before going to the ovarian steroidogenesis like estrogen and progesterone, let us know about we know that ovary consists of follicles. So structure of follicles is very, very important when we are before learning about estrogen as well as progesterone production. So the Graafian follicle structure is like that. The external layer is called thecal layer, that is theca externa as well as theca interna, and inside where it is surrounding the oocyte, those cells are called as granulosa cells. These thecal cells are vascular, as you can see the red spots over here, it is highly vascular, but the granulosa cells are avascular. So the thecal cells, actually it consists of vascularization, it is having the LH receptors, and granulosa cells are having FSH receptors. Now where in the ovary are the steroids synthesized? What are the steroids? It is estrogen as well as progesterone. How it is being produced? So as I have told you, the thecal cells, they are containing the LH receptors and it is having the vascularity in it. So that is why the LDL cholesterol can be obtained from the blood as it is having vascularization. So the LDL cholesterol is being diffused through the blood vessels to the thecal cells, and after that, as it is having the LH hormone, due to the presence of the LH hormone, what it consists of is that the cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol can be converted into androgen. After that, these androgens are then shifted to the granulosa cells. As the granulosa cells is avascularized, the androgens are being diffused into the granulosa cells. And what happens is that in the granulosa cells there are FSH receptors. So the FSH, the follicular stimulating hormone, is being acting upon the granulosa cells, and with the help of this FSH, the androgen is being converted into estrogen. So here, with the help of an enzyme called as aromatase. So aromatase is because of the hormone FSH being acting upon the granulosa cells. So this theory or this hypothesis is called as two-cell, two-gonadotrophin hypothesis. So in this, what is happening is that this thecal cells as well as granulosa cells are together functioning to produce the hormone estrogen. So this is how the estrogen hormone is being produced. Now let's turn on to ovarian follicle growth. So we know that there is ovarian cycle as well as uterine cycle in the menstrual cycle. So in the ovarian cycle, as you can see in this structure, there are so many primordial follicles which is present earlier from the fetal life of a woman, and after that what happens is that after the production of FSH from the pituitary gland, what happens is that it will act upon this follicles and it will grow, gradually it will grow, and it will form the Graafian follicle. The Graafian follicle where we call when it reaches a diameter of 20 to 24 mm of diameter. At the same time, what happens is that estrogen is being also released by the Graafian follicle. Then after that, after what happens, 14th day there will be ovulation, and after that this follicle will be converted into corpus luteum, and this corpus luteum will be degenerating after 10 to 14 days. So during each menstrual cycle, one vesicular follicle is converted into mature Graafian follicle, and this growth is due to FSH and it synthesizes estrogen hormone. Due to the presence of andrum of the primary oocyte is pushed to the lower pole of the follicles. So what is LH? That is the luteinizing hormone. That is a final maturation of the follicle. So and ovulation is by this hormone. After the ovum release, the follicle is converted into corpus luteum. So what happens with the other part of the follicle is that it is being luteinized by the luteinizing hormone. So the corpus luteum releases the progesterone hormone in the increasing quantity. So now coming to the ovarian cycle, as a gist I can say there are 3 stages, that is maturation of Graafian follicle, then ovulation, then comes the formation of corpus luteum. So this maturation of Graafian follicle is called as the follicular phase. The ovulation as well as the formation of corpus luteum is called as luteal phase. Now coming to the uterine cycle. So uterine cycle consists of 3 phases, that is menstrual phase, proliferative phase and secretory phase. Let's see one by one. So in the menstrual phase, what happens? The ovarian changes we already discussed that there will be during the time of menstruation. What happens? The uterine changes, sudden decrease in progesterone will cause endometrium will secrete prostaglandins, and PGF2 alpha causes vasoconstrictions of the arteries which supply the oxygenated blood. So vasoconstriction causes necrosis of the superficial endometrium and injury to walls of spiral arteries. Blood leak out through damaged artery wall, which is called as menstrual bleeding. During the proliferative phase, that is when the estrogen is being produced by the follicles, what happens is that the follicles will produce estrogen, then the estrogen will act upon the endometrium of the uterus. So the endometrium will start proliferating, okay, then that is the thickness of endometrium will be from 0.5 to 1 mm. So if you go deeply into the cells of the endometrium, there will be cuboid to columnar cells will be there, narrow tubular glands will be there, all the upper part will be tortuous. At the end of the proliferative phase, the thickness of the endometrium will be increasing to 3 to 4 mm. So these are the structures which you can see during the proliferative phase. Next, when we take the secretory phase, that is day 15 to 28, around 14th day we know that ovulation will take place. After that, the structure which is already there after the ovulation, that is structure of follicle, will be converted into corpus luteum, that is luteinized by the help of luteal hormone, and it is secreting progesterone in a large quantity. So it is secreting progesterone. If the pregnancy is to occur, the progesterone will support the pregnancy. If there is no pregnancy, the corpus luteum will be continuing only for 10 to 12 days. After that, it will be regress, that is luteolysis will be occurring. But what happens in the uterus? In the uterus, what happens? There is a secretory phase. What is secretory phase is that there will be vacuoles formation will be there. The tubular glands will be more tortuous, it will be more convoluted, and why there is vacuoles means that in the vacuoles there will be glycogens which is there, and why the glycogens means if in case the pregnancy is happening, the glycogens can support, it can provide the nutrients to the embryo which is being embedded in it. So the vascular bed to receive the fertilized ovum will help for implantation. So what is the fate of corpus luteum? So there is corpus luteum will remain for 14 days and it shrinks, which is called as luteolysis. If there is no pregnancy, this is happening, and after that because since corpus luteum is the major production of the progesterone hormone, the progesterone hormone will also be decreased in the blood. So let's look at this flow chart for a better understanding. So in the follicular phase, that is day 1 onwards, follicular phase is happening in the ovary. So proliferative phase in the uterus. So the FSH will act upon the Graafian follicle and it is producing the estrogen, and there is proliferation of the endometrium. So in a point the estrogen will be increasing. After that, in order to reduce the FSH, estrogen will be producing a negative feedback to the hypothalamus so that the FSH will be reduced, and the estrogen will produce a positive feedback to the pituitary gland which will produce as a LH. So there will be an LH surge just before the ovulation, just before the 14th day there will be an LH surge, and after that there will be an LH peak at the 14th day which causes the ovulation. So there is ovulation. After that, what happens? There will be, after the ovulation, the Graafian follicle with the whatever it is left behind is converted into the corpus luteum, and the corpus luteum is producing the progesterone as well as estrogen in a low quantity. Also there is production of inhibin A. Then this progesterone in turn is acting upon uterus, and there will be secretory changes in the uterine endometrium. This progesterone is maximum on the 22nd day of the cycle. So when it is becoming maximum, what it does is that it gives a negative feedback to the FSH and LH, and in turn there is the progesterone will be, as there is a negative feedback, the progesterone will be decreased in the body. So what causes, when there is a sudden decrease in progesterone in the body, there is shedding of the endometrium will be happening, and there is that is called as menstruation. Simultaneously, due to the sudden decrease of progesterone, uterus will also produce PGF2 alpha hormone, and that causes uterine contraction, and so that there will be contraction in the uterus and the blood is shed outside the body. So when the progesterone is being decreased, it will give a positive feedback to the FSH again, and the next cycle is again continued and the next cycle begins. So this is the a small gist about that is through a graphical through a pictorial representation or a flowchart representation of the menstrual cycle and how the hormonal regulation is being controlled. So this is the summary, the conclusion. Here I conclude that menstruation is the end point in the cascade of events starting at hypothalamus and ending in uterus. So this hormonal regulation, this HPO axis and all the regulations of the menstrual cycle is a fundamental of gynecology. Whether if you have to treat the PCOD or infertility or any kind of gynecological diseases, the hormonal regulation, the understanding, correct proper understanding of the functioning of the HPO axis as well as the regulation and which all hormones, all these should be known and learnt thoroughly. So, normal menstrual cycle depends upon the cyclical ovarian steroidogenesis and it consists of ovarian and uterine cycle. Thus, I conclude. Thank you.